I believe the species of crayfish is northern clearwater crayfish that's in this reference photo. This photo was taken in 2023 when I was in a field biology class, and it was taken in a area in the Flint River, which may surprise you because crayfish generally are an indicator of a clear water crayfish in particular is an indication of clear water and good water quality. Crayfish in general are an indication of good water quality. Now, I wanted to start this crayfish in charcoal. That was my main goal when I started these drawings, was to do some charcoal and use that up, but the expressionist in me just couldn't. This crayfish wanted to be colorful. And I think it would be a disservice to crayfish everywhere because they are very colorful animals. You usually think of them just being kind of brown, but there are some that are some brilliant blues and oranges, even if they haven't been boiled for a seafood dinner. But I guess we shouldn't call it seafood because there are only freshwater crayfish. So crayfish are in the group called decapods, which means they have 10 legs, and that includes things like crabs and lobsters. And there are 30 different species of lobsters that are all found in the ocean, in the salt water. And there are over 700 species of crayfish, and they're all found in fresh water. So the little guys have a lot more biodiversity. The study of crayfish is called astacology, which was a new word for me. So that is spelled Astacology. I just read this Crayfish Crawdad book by Zachary Graham, and it gave me a lot of crayfish facts. In fact, there's even a type of crayfish called the rusty gravedigger. There are crayfish found all over the world, with the exception of Antarctica, which basically just has penguins, as I always say, and mainland Africa. But there are crayfish found on the island of Madagascar, which is kind of amazing if there's none on the mainland of Africa. I mean, that means that they might have been on that island since Pangaea split into separate continents. The earliest crayfish fossils point to an origin that started when Pangaea was formed. So about 350 to 320 million years ago. There are 8 native species of crayfish that are known here in Michigan, and 2 highly invasive species, the rusty and the red swamp crayfish, that have been found here as well and are swiftly outcompeting the native species and even hybridizing with them. So I think this one is a northern clearwater crayfish because the main identification between them and the rusty crayfish is the rostrum. And I did have this crayfish in hand after I took its picture, or before I took its picture, or at some point while taking its picture. And the rostrum is that area in the front by the nose and the antenna. And that's the area that you can really tell the difference between a northern clearwater and a rusty crayfish, unless it happens to be a hybrid between the two. Crayfish mothers will actually kind of glue their eggs to the underside of their tail, and the babies will stay attached to their tail, and when they hatch, they'll still hang out with mom for quite some time, for about 4 to 6 molts, I believe. So you can imagine with a mom crayfish having about 400 to 600 baby craylings all around her, how stressful that might be. We don't often think about invertebrates being, providing parental care, but crayfish are ones that do. We did have a northern clearwater crayfish at one of the nature centers I worked at that lived with one of the turtles. I called him Carl the Crayfish. And that's where I learned the difference between a northern clearwater and a rusty crayfish, because I was hopeful that we did not have, in fact, an invasive species on display at the nature center. The northern clearwater crayfish is a tertiary burrower, which means that they live mostly in streams and live under rocks rather than on the riverbanks and stream banks and making a chimney or a burrow that they live in. They're also primary burrowers and secondary burrowers. So the secondary burrowers, they live on the riverbanks and they build the chimneys, and they'll stay in their burrow most of the time, coming out at night to come feed, primarily at night. And the primary burrowers, they'll live in a little bit further inland, and they'll burrow down to the water table, and they'll find water that way, and they'll spend most of their lives in their burrows as well. Crayfish are omnivores, so they'll eat basically any of the floating plant and animal matter that's in the water, which made it great because Carl the crayfish basically ate all the turtle's leftovers. They are invertebrates, so they go through a molt, losing their exoskeleton several times, most commonly while they're young, 4 to 6 molts, and then they'll have another 4 to 7 molts over the course of their lifetime, depending on their sex and what species they are. Oh, guys, I just had a thought. What if I finish this crayfish in colored pencil, and then for the background, I add in watercolor, because the rules are made up and the points don't matter. So I can do what I want. So I added a few details in rocks and colored pencil as well before doing a watercolor wash over the background, with the exception of some highlights for the reflections. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment, all that.